listening to the Betmaker Show. This is the Week 11 NFL preview for Monday, November 11th, 2019. And now, live from Las Vegas, the host of the Betmaker Show, Brian Blessing.
Well, it's a Monday, and that means we jumpstart another week, and it is flat out scary how fast it's going now. But all of a sudden, you're seeing things starting to tighten up in wild card races. The Cowboys lost to the Vikings. We got a horse race in the NFC East. The Vikings, big win on the road. All of a sudden, they're going to make the Packers earn it. I mean, things are heating up. The Saints come back from the bye and get boat raced by Atlanta. And then we got an exciting Monday night game. Let's see how San Francisco and Seattle fare on Monday night. Let's get going. It's a brand new week. We want to take a look ahead. That's always our mode. Quick recap, but we're always in look-ahead mode in this industry. And to that end, on Mondays, we love calling on our go-to guy, one of the premier odds makers in the world. We turn to Jack to get the numbers for the upcoming games. Hi, Jack. How was the weekend, pal?
Good morning, Brian. The weekend was fine. Thank you.
Good, sir. And I'll just throw it to you. What was the big takeaway for you over the weekend? What caught your eye more than anything as we start to look ahead?
Things I remember from the weekend would be the ineffectiveness of Breeze and New Orleans yesterday, and also the continued sort of downside of the offense of the Rams. Even though Pittsburgh has a stout defense, they create a lot of turnovers, but I thought the Rams would fare a little better on offense.
I'm glad you mentioned that. The Rams, we'll get to them here in a moment, but I watched that team, Jack. I swear to you, the play calling is an absolute atrocity. I mean, they've got Goff out there throwing all the time. He's been effective most of the season. And, Gurley gets 9 yards on first down, then they throw, and punt. And then when it matters most, it's 4th and 2. And you think it's a good idea to have a punter throwing a pass? I mean, who makes this stuff up?
Well, it's odd when all these things sort of work for him in the last couple of years, and he was a genius, and now they're not working, and he's losing that status.
Yeah, well, because he's losing games because of it.
You're right. And I think one of the main problems is the effectiveness of Gurley. When Gurley was at the top of his game the last 2 years, their offense, they had that always the threat of the run, so they had to watch for everything. Now that threat's gone for some reason. I don't know if it's due to injuries or just a pounding over a few years, but now they become a one-dimensional offense almost. Yeah,
that's the $64,000 question. I mean, is it the running backs, or are there no holes there, or is it simply an unwillingness to run the football? And in many instances, it seems to me like they abandon the run. But that's why coaches make a lot of money. We get to second guess them. All right, let's dive in. Let's go to Seattle, San Fran tonight. This is a really intriguing game. San Fran laying 6, total 47.5. San Francisco, it's been an awesome season. And, with each passing week, we say, well, we'll find out. Well, listen, they just keep winning. But the reality for Seattle, with the Rams specifically, that's a nice segue into the game tonight. Seattle's 2 games behind San Fran, and they play them twice. So I would think Seattle would play this like a playoff game because other than that, they know the division's gone, and they're relegated to a wild card team. So I would think Seattle gives them their best shot tonight. So we're going to find out again how good the Niners are.
We will. And I think Shanahan, unlike many teams that have success year after year, and where this might be an advantage in a situation for Seattle to say, hey, look, this is our chance to prove something we can win. And the other team says, we've been here before, we'll take care of business, and they're not that motivated. San Francisco hasn't had that success over the last couple of years. I think Shanahan will stress to them, you win tonight, you put this team away.
All right, let's go to Thursday night's game. And all of a sudden, Pittsburgh is very much back in the wild card race in the AFC. The Browns get a win to go to 3-6. They beat the Bills. It was a bizarre game. I think the Bills beat themselves as much as the Browns beat them. But Bookmaker, you look, we got 2.5. Total on the game is 40. That's kind of a general consensus is out there. But does this game, it would appear it might get to 3 at some point. 2.5 minus 15. But Pittsburgh's playing hard.
Pittsburgh's playing hard, and I think they are the better team. And in my heart, I really don't know why Cleveland is favored. Even they lost, what was it, 4 in a row going to yesterday to go to 2-6. And I don't think they acquitted themselves very well yesterday. As you said, Buffalo could have taken that game. Cleveland didn't show me anything again yesterday. And the Steelers have the defense, and they get more turnovers. Cleveland turns the ball over more. Pittsburgh takes the turnovers more. I think Pittsburgh's the winner of this game.
Yeah, Cleveland scored on the first drive of the game, and then they got pushed around the remainder of the game. Had one good drive to their credit at the end, got the lead, and then Buffalo's coming down had them on the run, and then all of a sudden they're huddling with 37 seconds left in the clock running like they were settling for a field goal to tie when they had them on the ropes. They could have gone down to try to get the win. And then they settled for a 52-yard field goal from a guy that missed a chip shot earlier in the game in cold conditions. It was stupidity, but hey, the Browns survive and get the W here. But to Pittsburgh's point, it's all about the defense. They are flying around.
It is. I mean, they 7 of the points they gave up yesterday were on Rudolph's turnover on the first or second play of the game. Take that away, and they held what we're not saying is a great Ram offense anymore, as we talked about before. It's a decent offense, and they sort of dominated them, and they've dominated their whoever they played before that. This is a good Pittsburgh defensive unit.
All right, Dallas is at Detroit. Virtually everywhere, there's a number that's not on the board. The belief would be Dallas would probably be about a field goal favorite with a total in the low 50s, 51, 51.5, if Stafford's in. But this game may stay down for a while.
It will. I think we'll find out pretty soon that Stafford will probably be out this week, too. We opened this game on Saturday at Dallas 3.5 and 51.5. It was down to 3 and 51 by the time we took it off. Then naturally the word, that was about the time the word came out about Stafford. I think it would go back up at 3.5 and 51.5 if Stafford were in. And if Driscoll's the quarterback, it's probably 7, 7.5, and maybe 49.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, the drop-off is significant. Dallas, I mean, they were slinging it around offensively. They were decent against the Vikes. Listen, that was a good football game. You come up short, so be it. You come up short. But that's been Dallas's MO this year, right? A little roller coaster ride.
Right. They show all the potential in the world. There's a few games that they could have won. They let one game get away in particular, the one where they went to the Jets and lost. That was embarrassing. But they're a potent team, and they'll probably show up for a good game on Sunday.
All right. Tampa Bay sports a 3-6 record, and they can go up and down the field on anybody, and they can also cough it up and, with Winston and make mistakes and give a short field. New Orleans, Atlanta, we thought would be a track meet. We're looking at New Orleans 5 on the road here. Total on the game, let's say 51 or 51.5. You can tell us what you opened it, Jack, and where you sit now. But, was it a one-off? But what happened to the Saints offense? Michael Thomas was terrific, but everybody else was invisible.
They were. We opened this game at 6, New Orleans 6 and 51. We're currently at 5.5, the Saints, and 50.5. I don't know what happened yesterday. I mean, Breeze didn't really look himself. There was a particular play. The game they were within a touchdown, and it was 3rd and goal from the 15, and they ran a screen pass that had no chance at all. I think if he were completely healthy, they would have thrown it. But if he's not completely healthy, I don't know why Bridgewater's not a quarterback.
By the way, that play, Jack, I mean,
Yep.
that's the definition of sheer stupidity. I watch that. I mean, it is my pet peeve when you sit there, and even the best in the business do it. Like, what do these guys, what are they thinking? It's 3rd and goal, as you said. I think it was 3rd and goal from the 17, I believe.
Okay.
And it's a one-possession game, and they call a timeout. Like, what are you doing? I mean, really? I mean, what are you going to dial up off a timeout from 3rd and goal from the 17? Take the 5 yards. I mean, and then because you had no shot to do, they run a screen, and they end up kicking the field goal. Well, at the end of the game, that timeout mattered. I don't understand. These guys don't understand that the timeouts are oxygen tanks. You just don't throw them away. And here's Breeze and Peyton, two guys that better than anybody should know.
You had an illustration of that last night in the game we talked about. There was a good game. Dallas conserved their 3 timeouts. Even when they failed, they got the ball back and had a chance for a Hail Mary.
Absolutely.
Timeout. All right, I get the ball back. I get one more shot.
And they literally, and that was a good shot, by the way.
Sure.
All right, craziness. You make you shake your head. Atlanta, Carolina. Jack, we're seeing a little mixed bag here on the board. Let me get your take on this. What were you looking at on the weekend, and what is it?
We opened up Carolina 7 and 54. Right now we're at 5.5 and 50. And obviously the difference in that the betting that showed up was Atlanta's performance after the bye as opposed to before the bye. Going into New Orleans and beating them, that's an excellent win. That's not the team that played the couple weeks before that. And that's the reason for the money going down, and I would have to agree with it. I think the game is around 5.5, 6, and the total will probably go up a little to 50.5.
Carolina, that was a good effort at Green Bay. Crazy at the end. How that ball's a whisker away from, well, talk about money changing hands on one play at the end of a game.
That last play seemed like McCaffrey was almost going to spin out and score, but his own lineman was standing in the way. Nobody's fault, just fate.
Jacksonville and Indianapolis. What are you looking at here? The Colts losing to the Dolphins. Hoyer, Brissett, I don't care who. That's a punch to the gut for the Colts.
Yes, it was. Indianapolis, we opened 3.5 and 44. That was before Brissett was ruled out. Now the difference, what we're saying with Hoyer and him, is we would have the Colts 3 and 46 with Brissett in, and we would have Jacksonville 1 and 44 with Hoyer at quarterback. And so we're giving them a 4-point difference.
And the other thing I guess we would watch here, because we've really just never had a chance to see it in action, and that's going to be Nick Foles running the Jags.
Right. We'll get to see him come back. I thought the rookie did very well in his absence, and I think deservedly they should go back to Foles. Obviously, they're paying him more, and Minshew was half and half, but he was an adequate quarterback. They're hoping for a little more than that. And again, will Vinatieri be there this week or not?
Well, and you get a little rust that you have to consider with Foles. But the one thing we know, the guy's going to be fresh as a daisy. But the one thing about this AFC South, Jack, I think Houston's, capable of being, on occasion an electrical team offensively. But the bottom line is, I get the number here, right? For the most part, you can just hang the home team 3 and figure out the total and let the market decide in any AFC South game.
Right, you're 100% right. And as I just mentioned too, Vinatieri, I don't know how many games Indianapolis more games they would have won if they had a decent kicker this year. And we're talking about one of the great kickers of all time, but it's not his year this year.
For outstanding information and special offerings and promotions, we invite you and encourage you to sign up for our newsletter today simply by going to the website at betmaker.com. All right, let's go to Denver taking on Minnesota, and you get the Broncos coming off a bye, and they're another team, one day to the next. You're not sure what you get. The defense can rear its head, but the one thing I think you're pretty confident in is they're not going to light you up offensively, and that's reflected in the total.
Right. We opened the game 10.5, 38.5. Currently, we're 10 and 38.5. Allen gets to start again for Denver. He played I think he was a good replacement for Flacco. Flacco wasn't setting the world on fire. That's a tough guy. I think the game hangs right around there. Stays around 10, and the total maybe goes to 39.
All right, then the Jets are at Washington. Washington coming off a bye. Yes, they have to play this game, but the bottom line is, the Jets, get the job done against the Giants, so that if anything, they've got some bragging rights. There were points in that game. What do you do with Washington coming off a bye? What was the thought process here?
Well, we opened Washington 2 and 37.5 prior to the Jet victory. After the game, there was a little money for the Jets. It went down to 1. But it's come back to 2.5. Washington gets Geis back this week, the kid out of LSU. who I think is a real threat if he can stay healthy. Keenum is still in the concussion protocol, but they say even if he's healthy, he's not expected to start, which is contrary to what the coach said before the Buffalo game, when said he's their quarterback. So I don't know if they were impressed with Harris's effort against Buffalo or not. I wasn't. But either way, I think Washington stays in this range, 1.5 to 2.5.
All right, I just ask you this game in relation to it's a rematch, and it wasn't that long ago. What were you thinking, Buffalo at Miami, heading into the weekend, and where do we stand now?
We opened this game, believe it or not, at 7.5 and 39. We are now at 5 and 39. I see the money. I see the reason for the money in taking it down. Buffalo and Miami played a tough game a few weeks ago. Buffalo came out on top, so you have the reverse factor going for Miami. And Miami's played a few good games in a row. Fitzpatrick, despite being what I consider a mediocre quarterback, has had a good run. Offensively, defensively, I think they've improved. I think it's a tough matchup for Buffalo. I see this game going down to 4.
No, I can see the money continuing to come down. I'm a little curious. I believe me, I understand why, but they did just play, and the score was 31-21. And the weather's going to be good. Weather's not going to be an issue. The total looks low to me. And I get both offenses at time can be pedestrian, and both teams are coming out of low-scoring affairs. But the matchup itself, I think, does lend itself to points in this game. The total looks exceedingly low to me. That's just me.
Right. A good chance you're right, Brian. I have no doubt about that. The 31-21 game, it was 52. There was, I think, wasn't there a touchdown or a turnover late in the game to make the second half, to make Buffalo cover the second half?
If memory serves, I mean, Miami, I believe, was ahead at the half. You know what? That actually escapes me. Whether I don't think there was a defensive touchdown. You mean a touchdown with a short field?
Right.
Yeah, that probably happened. That's hey, listen, that's Fitzpatrick. That's Fitzpatrick in a nutshell. I mean, he'll go up and down the field and do some cool things, and then he'll do something stupid. And I don't know. We'll see. I completely. Hey, listen. It's out there. It's a market number, so be it. And obviously, you got to read on the market. I don't see it racing one way or the other. It's early.
We might have a read today, but not on Sunday. You might be right. This could close 41.
Okay, but Houston and Baltimore, good football game. Baltimore is just on a heater, and Houston is fresh for this one. What was the thought process?
The thought process is that we opened Baltimore 4 and 49. Baltimore playing Jackson. I mean, he had that one spectacular run yesterday, but disregard that run. He's playing very well overall. The defense has improved in the last few weeks. They haven't had the toughest schedule. Houston's played a tougher schedule coming off a bye. We opened 4 and 49. We're at 4.5 and 50 under a little money. I think this goes back to 4, maybe 4 dog money while coming off the bye, and the total hangs right around 49.5, 50.
And like you said, with the consensus number of 4.5, right? That's a volatile area where you can see that dance a little bit. When it's all said and done, what do you think it closes?
I think it closes 4, maybe 4 dog money.
All right. And then Arizona's at San Francisco. Obviously, we have to wait and see what San Fran does against Seattle. But their resume, we know what they are. They're unbeaten. I tell you, in Arizona, they compete. I mean, you say anything you want, and it was a program in disarray. Murray's learning on the job. They play hard, and they're in most every game.
And there's one reason for that. Yesterday, they turned the ball over twice, and that's their first 2 turnovers in 4 or 5 ball games. If you don't turn the ball over, every game will be close. Turnovers just dictate what happens and who wins the game.
And basically, those 2 turnovers, they only lost by a field goal. So,
right.
Football,
Well, they had Winston turn it over 3 times.
Well, there you go. He's got to be. It's funny. I mean, we already talked about the Tampa thing, but just knowing the nature of that kid, where I mean, he literally can do a 3-play 80-yard drive in 3 passes, and he can just as easily throw it, and it goes racing into his own end zone the other way. Just back to that for one second. When you have a quarterback like that, what kind of shade do you put on a total? Is it almost I say, okay, the game should be this, but we know that this guy's a powder keg. Is there an automatic shade when you're dealing with somebody who's so inconsistent?
I would say, in other words, if you did the numbers and it came up at 42, you'd probably go to 44.
Yeah.
Because it must be frustrating for a coach because he has so much talent. He can run just a little. He can throw great. He can throw deep. He can throw short. But every now and then it's just that terrible, terrible play. And so you'd always think it's going to go up there. There's going to be a turnover somewhere and give it a value of 4 points, and there you are.
Good football game, and I would think talk about a great bye week for the Eagles. They're sitting home minding their own business, and Dallas loses. So the back end of the season here, it's a track meet and a horse race for them. They're excited to get a little bounce in their step. You know, it's not the end of the world. New England loses a game, so what? But for you, how much easier was this to make the number in that New England and Philadelphia are coming off a bye?
But it neutralizes a lot of things. I mean, for example, in the Baltimore game we just spoke about, where that number might have been 5.5, you open 4.5, 4. You just go down to the next number. And this one, we didn't have to deal with any of that. It's more like these teams are both rested. In a sense, it's almost like a playoff game. The rest is even. They're ready to play. Just make what the number would be. So it's much easier.
All right, Cincinnati is at Oakland, and sometimes the number's telling you something. And I just look at this, and Cincinnati is a dog's breakfast. And, what I'm looking for a market number, and I get it. You can go broke lane double digits in the NFL. But boy, Cincinnati, it's gone beyond sideways. What do you do here?
We opened the game 9-48. Right now we're at 10 favorite money. There's some 10.5s out there. The total 49.5. We opened it up at 48. Like you say, it's unpredictable. If Cincinnati can show up and just play a reasonable game? They haven't done that in a few weeks. The quarterback change seemed to make no difference at all. The only problem with me is Oakland, a sort of average team, as a 10-point favorite just strikes me wrong.
Well, okay, and here, I'll draw an analogy to you in that, like uncharted territory or like it's stuff that looks foreign to the eye. I go back to the first Bills-Miami game. Buffalo laying 17, right? I'm like, I don't care how bad anybody's like, what? And you're looking at that and saying, wait a minute, they're not good enough to be 17 over anybody. And I'm saying, the Bengals are so bad, the Raiders could be more. But that's the thing. When teams are just becoming good, and all of a sudden it's so foreign to the eye, and it's what it is. It's the weight of expectations.
It is. You're exposed to win. Normally, Oakland goes into a game. They're a 3-point underdog. They're a 3-point favorite, and you have to play it. I don't know if they'll treat this as coming off. They have the Thursday night game, which got them the extra rest. But I don't know if that'll be like a lark saying, hey, we won a big game and now we have Cincinnati. It might work against them.
All right. Then we go to Chicago and the Rams. This is the Sunday night game. And as you tell us what the thought process is and what the total is, I would just say to you, imagine this after everything we watched last year, to see a Rams game with a total of 40 tells you where they are right now.
Right. It tells you their defense is playing adequately and their offense is, as we talked about before, struggling. We opened this game at 8-42. It is now, we have 7 dog money. It's mostly 6.5 out there. We have 40 under 15. It's basically 40 flat. The only team that might be having more offensive trouble than the Rams is Chicago. And I think it's going to be a tough matchup for them going to the West Coast. I think the Rams, McVay will be all over them this week. Chicago will be coming off a win, which won't give them much satisfaction, but they really didn't dominate Detroit. I think this would be the one game where the Rams might unleash it.
And then Kansas City and the Chargers. I don't know what we do with Phillip Rivers and this team. They're capable of great things, and they're capable of being god-awful. They beat the Packers. Then they turn around, and Rivers looked like Father Time against the Raiders. But it's the Chiefs that's interesting here. After coming up short against Tennessee, for argument's sake, Jack, everybody thought this was going to be a walkover for the Chiefs in the AFC West. By the time they take the field, if the Raiders beat the Bengals, which everybody expects should happen. Kansas City needs this game to stay in first place.
They do, and they have the best quarterback in the league back. He played one of his best games ever yesterday, and they still lost to a mediocre quarterback and a very average team in Tennessee. We opened Kansas City 4. We're now 3.5 minus 15. There's still a lot of 4 out there. We opened the total 49. We're up to 52. Out there, there's 52.5 and 53s. I think it's just a tough game. I think 3.5, 4 is a decent number. And as you said, you can't predict what the Chargers are going to do. The problem is the Kansas City defense yesterday, they just gave a big play after big play. They're either gashed by the run or they had Tannehill make a few key passes. I mean, Mahomes can't play better than he played yesterday, and they still lost the game. So, if anything, I'd be inclined to take it.
As always, it's great information from Jack. And I would wrap it up with this question, and please take this the right way. It's a compliment. It's been about 3 years now that NFL numbers have become so volatile on a week-to-week basis based on a result the week before. All of a sudden, you're seeing a number like that's beautiful now. I mean, you tell us, oh, yeah, going into the weekend, we had something -4, and then as a result, now it's -6. That never happened before. And I know you, I'm saying you've always worked hard, but is it a little harder to make the NFL numbers now? Because in the past, I mean, guys like you could make these numbers in your sleep. It seems it's like it's more of a challenging enterprise than it's ever been before.
I think as the players became more sophisticated, the job became just a little harder. It's not just the last 2 years, going back even further. They have all the access to all the data in the world right now. And where it used to be, we all had an impression of a team and basically the general, what their average score was offensively and defensively, just make a number and it was simple. Now there's more intricacies, there's more turnovers, net yards per attempt. It's become like baseball and all the other sports with all the statisticians telling you all the things that you should do. So yeah, it's become more difficult. Not crazy. Trust me, they don't know it, but we're overpaid.
Well, there you go, man. No, because I was going to say, okay, so you have to be adaptable and go with the times. But if they've got all that information, you've got all that information. And the bottom line is, and I think this is a fair statement, again, not to diminish what you do, but I think it's maybe more challenging than it's been in the past. But the NFL remains probably, of all things, the easiest numbers to make. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would agree with that. And the other thing, too, is remember, it's only in the recent, the last decade that they came where they had to come out with the injury report. It used to be this stuff was kept secret and some guys would find out about it and some guys wouldn't. And now, basically, it's known. I know New England plays games with it, and I think Pittsburgh just got fined for doing the same thing. But as the gambling becomes more legal in the United States, what you'll find is that the gambling commissions there are going to make these reports more and more accurate. And I think that'll help everybody.
I promise this is the last question, but just to follow up on what you just said, and I think where it's different. Yeah, okay, Wednesday, here's the injury report. Have a nice day. Questionable, doubtful, probable, whatever. But now we get limited participant, full participant, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and there are significant updates that really do point, for the most part, like the Stafford thing kind of popped up out of nowhere. But generally speaking, you got to read one way or the other whether a guy's going to go. And sometimes it'll say a true game time decision. But that seems to be a handful of those guys, when in the past you'd be sitting there at 8:35 my time on Sunday. You're sitting there with your face like pressed up against the TV screen to see the inactive list.
Sure. You'd have Jimmy the Greek and Brent Musburger going all the stuff before the game.
Oh, going old school there, Jack.
Yeah, I know. Now you got Stafford is the perfect analogy there. Stafford every week was listed as did not participate on Wednesday game time decision, but he played and he always played well. Last week, we thought it was the same thing when they said, well, he didn't practice. Oh, okay, he's playing. But it was worse than we thought.
There you go. Great information, Jack. Thank you. We always appreciate it. It's very insightful. It helps us figure out the Rubik's Cube that is the NFL.
Betmaker, let's make some money tonight.
Well, that's the Betmaker Show for now. We publish multiple times each week. We'd like to thank you for listening, and if you liked what you heard, please take a moment to leave a rating and review, or subscribe to our show feed, or share our show with a friend or two and help us grow the show. We very much appreciate it. Visit us on the web at betmaker.com, and reminder to sign up for the newsletter. Thanks to our engineer, Darren Vandermolen, and producer, Mike Gallivan. The Betmaker Show is a production of Cardinal Marketing Incorporated. Betmaker is a registered trademark. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this content without the express written consent of Cardinal Marketing Incorporated is strictly prohibited.
The handicapping and sports odds information contained on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Please confirm the wagering regulations in your jurisdiction, as they vary from state to state, province to province, and country to country. Using this information to contravene any law or statute is prohibited. The podcast is not associated with, nor is it endorsed by any professional or collegiate league, association, or team. This podcast does not target and is not intended for an audience under the age of 18. If you think that you have a gambling addiction, stop this podcast now and please seek help.
Gambling and betting on sports is a form of entertainment and should be about having a good time. But when done excessively, it may negatively affect other areas of a person's life, such as their physical and mental health, school or work performance, finances, and or interpersonal relationships. At betmaker.com and the Betmaker Show, we're concerned about the addiction that gambling may cause, and for this reason, we encourage everyone to practice responsible gambling, an approach to gambling that helps you ensure that it remains an enjoyable activity. Here are the main principles of responsible gambling. Don't think of gambling as a way to make money. Always gamble with money that you can afford to lose. Set limits and stick to them. Never chase losses. Don't gamble when you're depressed or upset, and create a healthy balance. Always be aware of how much time you spend gambling or thinking about gambling. And do not allow gambling to cause you to miss out on time with family and friends or time spent on other activities you enjoy. By following these guidelines, gambling can be a good time and great entertainment. If you feel at any time that your gambling is taking away from important areas of your life, is causing you stress or depression, or is leading to financial losses that are beyond your control, please reach out for help. Learn more at responsiblegambling.org.